Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Nicole, and if you're new to these parts, welcome. I am really glad that you're here. And I do mean that sincerely because when I started this channel a couple of days ago, I really didn't expect anyone other than my family or friends to watch it. And people who I don't even remotely know have already liked and commented and even subscribed after that first video. So it really does mean a lot. When you do something intimidating, it's just nice to be rewarded with support. So thank you for being here. Today, I'm wearing my favorite sweater. I shaved my legs before I'd recorded this video. Not that you can see them, but having fresh shaved legs does make me feel better about my life. And it was raining, so it was really cozy weather. And I thought, this is the perfect time to do a good old book review. So this is actually my second time trying to film this. If you hear anything in the background, it's most likely a car. Please ignore it. But after watching my first go around, I realized I was rambling. I did that in my previous video. I need to stay focused. So we're going at this. I really only have 15 minutes to film this because I've got to be watching an online service soon. So what we're here for is clarity, efficiency, and a really good book review. So here we go. So today I'm going to be talking about Marie Lu's The Kingdom of Back. So to stay on topic, what's this book about? Well, this book is about Nannerl Mozart. Nannerl is her nickname. I don't actually remember what her real name is. They use her nickname all throughout the book, so please forgive me for forgetting. But Nannerl is Mozart's older and just as talented sister. In this story, she is trying to make a name for herself. She wants a legacy, something to leave behind, which is very difficult, especially in the 18th century when women are really just raised to be educated and talented and well-mannered, not for their own benefit, but so they can get married. Such a travesty that people had to endure that, but those were the times. So throughout this book, Nannerl is trying to make a name for herself. She composes her own music, and her father takes her and Mozart and travels to different places to play for people who are important in government. Sometimes they play for kings and queens of different countries. And even though Nannerl's older and she writes her own music, she hides it from her father because she's afraid of what he would do with it, just because she's a girl. She's not expected to be talented in that way. She's expected to be talented to bring her family income and to one day be married to someone who is very well off and suitable. So even though Nannerl travels and plays music with her brother and does have opportunities in that way to maybe make a name for herself, because her father is so strict and the way that society was, she doesn't really get as much of a chance as her brother, who we all know very well, probably. And this is where the Kingdom of Back comes into play. The Kingdom of Back is a world that Nannerl and Mozart created while they traveled from city to city. It is very dark and eerie and mysterious. It really draws Nannerl and Mozart into the world. And the way that the author writes, it really draws the reader in, because while you're reading about the Kingdom of Back, you feel like you're in it because it just kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies sometimes, and I really liked that. But in the Kingdom of Back, there is a fairy princeling who presents Nannerl with the opportunity to make a lasting name for herself. You know, that's kind of the way that you become immortal, which is a really interesting thought that not has haunted me ever since I read this book, but has really just kind of been in the back of my mind. But maybe more on that later. But the princeling gives Nannerl an opportunity to make a name for herself, but it comes at great cost, and she doesn't know what that cost is until she's too far into it. And at that point, it's kind of like, I've already invested all of this time and effort. She can already see herself advancing, but is it really worth it? She struggles later on in the book to know whether or not being well known and having a legacy is worth what is being asked of her. So that's a general overview of the story. I don't want to give too much away because it is a really good book. I feel like you should just go into it not knowing a whole lot, just so you can be fully immersed in the story and not really have any expectations. So that's all I'm going to say about the story itself. Now, on to the characters. I really loved the way that Marie Lu depicted Nannerl and Mozart and their relationship. They had such a sweet brother-sister relationship. Nannerl was so talented and she knew what she wanted for her life, and I love that about her. She didn't want to conform to the ideas that her father wanted her to. Her mother wanted kind of the same things for her that her father wanted, but hers was more of just like being submissive to her husband. It wasn't really, I guess, that she truly desired that for her daughter. I don't know why a mother would, but things were different back then. Mozart was such a sweet little brother. He admired and adored Nannerl. He wanted her to succeed so much. He wanted her to be able to create and put things out there without having to fear, but he really just didn't understand that she wasn't afforded the same opportunities that he was, simply because he was a young boy. Mozart rooted for Nannerl more than anyone else in the story, and I sincerely hope that that's how it was in real life. I hope that their relationship was just as close, because I feel like with them traveling so much and being in such close quarters, I feel like that would have helped towards them becoming very close, but also with their father kind of using them, honestly. I feel like that would have brought them closer together. Their father is a jerk. He's not very smart. The family is constantly in debt, and to get out of debt and make ends meet, he has to use his children to go and play to make money. And it's kind of crazy that he relied on them for income. To a certain extent, it's great that he allowed their kids to pursue a passion of theirs, but was it a passion of theirs initially, or was it because he wanted them to? Who knows? But he was a typical father character back then who really valued his son a lot more than he did his daughter. And you can really see that whenever their lives kind of become threatened. The princeling is such a creepy character, but I loved that. The princeling is very unreliable. You don't really know whether or not you should trust him, but he's got the goods to get our girl Nannerl where she wants to go, so you kind of just have to take him as he is, I guess. But he's a very interesting character, and I don't want to spoil it for you. I'm not going to say much else about him. So why did I like this book? One, I loved that it focused on someone that history forgot. I love a great, strong female character. I really enjoyed the relationship between Nannerl and Mozart. I feel like the author did such a great job depicting that relationship. As much as I wish Nannerl's story in real life had ended differently, I do like that the book stayed in line with what actually happened in history. I feel like when it comes to historical fiction, even though this is only the first historical fiction book I've ever read, so is my opinion really valid? Who knows? I feel like when it comes to historical fiction, you shouldn't stray too far from the story just because it won't be believable. And I feel like that was really important for this book because of the fantasy world that was created You needed something to keep it grounded. And while we all may know that there is not some alternate universe with a fairy princeling who can get you all the things that you want, part of you kind of wants to hope maybe there is. So I think that having the history behind the story stay true really helps whenever you've got a magical world. I also loved that this book made a lasting impact on me. I seriously thought about it for days afterwards. I even asked my husband, I was like, what would you do to make sure that people remembered your name and that you had a legacy? And he was really stumped, but it was just so interesting to me. And really at the end of this book, that song from Hamilton was playing in the back of my mind, you know, just who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And this book really just made me want to establish a legacy. I may not be remembered by a large majority of people, but I hope that I can establish a legacy in the hearts of the people that I know and love to where I will be remembered. It's kind of like that movie Coco, if you've ever seen it. So good. Disney and Pixar, you did it again. But we live on in the memories of those that we love. That's how we become immortal, if you want to take it that far. And so I'm so grateful that Marie Lu took the story of a girl who was forgotten and she redeemed it in such a beautiful way. And I am going to read the first 2 pages of this story because it's really what sold me. As soon as I read it, I thought, I am in for a good time. This is going to be such a good book. Page 1. I am going to tell you a story you already know, but listen carefully because within it is one you have never heard before. The story you know is about a boy named Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. You recognize his name, even if you do not. You know him well because you have heard his music all your life. He was here and then gone, a brief, brilliant shard of life, a flash of stardust that ignited the sky. I knew his mind better than anyone else, understood its every winding path and quiet corner as deeply as my own. I remember everything about the way his tiny hand fit into mine, the sweep of his long lashes against his baby cheeks, the expression he would turn on me in the darkness of our shared bedchamber, his wide, fragile eyes glittering, always dreaming of some faraway place. I will tell you how the space in his small chest held so much joy and beauty that if he wasn't careful, it might all spill out into the streets, drenching the world in too much light. He knew this, and so he held back, made rigid symmetry of the unimaginable so that the world could understand it, and for that, his music became all the more sublime. The story you have never heard is about the sister who composed beside him. In a way, you know her too, for you have also heard her music all your life. She is not the stardust, but the steady wick, the one who burns low and quiet. You do not see her by the way she lights up the sky, but by the way she steadies herself against the darkness, alone at night, beside a window while the world sleeps around her. She writes when others do not see. By morning, none would know that her flame had ever been there. Her music is a ghost in the air. You know it because it reminds you of something you cannot quite grasp. You wonder where you have heard it before. The story you already know is set in a real land full of real kings and castles and courts. There are long carriage rides and summer concerts and a little boy in a royal coat. The story you have never heard is set in a dream of fog and stars, fairy princelings and queens of the night. It is about the kingdom of Bach and the girl who found it. I am the sister, the other Mozart, and her story is mine. If that doesn't make you want to read this book, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with you, but maybe you might want to check your taste in literature, because that's just some gorgeous writing. But that's all I've got for you today. I'm hoping that this second go-around was a lot more cohesive, because I hate it when my words make sense individually, but not as full sentences. If it didn't turn out to be okay, I'm just gonna scrap this. You guys will never hear the Kingdom back, which would be a real shame. So, we'll see. Anyways, I hope you guys have a lovely weekend. Thank you again for joining me. I'll see you guys later.